talk about how, just give me your reaction to what
Yeah.
happened today and the last couple of days.
The Arkansas Senate today debated for, I think, between 90 minutes to 2 hours, the Senate Bill 294, the LEARNS Act, the giant education bill that got filed Monday evening, then got heard in committee yesterday, and then was on the floor today. It's very unusual for a bill this big to move this quickly. But we did have some good debate both in committee yesterday and on the floor today. Unsurprisingly, the bill passed, although perhaps with fewer votes than we expected. So it should be in House committee early next week.
What's good and bad about this?
There's a lot to like in the LEARNS Act, including raises for teachers, although I have a few issues with how those are structured, but with supports for improving literacy rates in Arkansas, tutor programs, all kinds of little programs that I think are going to do a lot of good if they're implemented in the right way and properly funded. But for a lot of us, the big concern were the voucher, the expansion of the voucher program in the state, and the repeal of the Fair Teacher Dismissal Act. And so despite everything that was good in the bill, it was really impossible for those of us concerned about the vouchers and the repeal to ultimately vote for the legislation.
So what is the situation with the voucher program that's not good with this?
With the voucher program, what we're going to see is public dollars that should be going to public schools be going to private entities, private schools. I really think that's a bad idea. We need to invest more in our public schools and not carve out a situation when we have a tiered system of education, public education in Arkansas, where some schools are going to get resources, public resources, even though they are private entities, and not have to abide by all the rules that public schools do, whereas public schools are going to face fewer resources, but they're still going to be required to follow rules and regulations that private schools don't have to. And so it really doesn't seem like a fair situation. And I know a lot of people talk about how this is going to allow parents and students to choose their schools. That's not how this works. Private schools are going to select which students they want. And so if you have a student who's struggling in a public school, they go to a private school, they continue to struggle, that private school can send them back to public schools. And that just doesn't seem like a fair situation.
Will the private school not have to come under state guidelines if they get state funds?
There is going to be some eligibility and accountability requirements for people who want to start a private school, but they will not have to play by the same rules that public schools and some charter schools have to. So there will be a difference. And to be clear, I'm not against private schools or charter schools. I'm glad that we have these other options, but I don't think any of these alternatives to public schools should come at the expense of public schools, and that's what we're concerned about here.
Some people have emailed us saying this is you're getting into the church and state separation issue with this. Is that the case in this? Is that the case here?
Certainly. I mean, there are private religious schools. I'm sure some might take advantage of this program once it becomes law, if it does indeed become law.
My wife was a teacher for 38 years before she retired. When she was in Fort Smith schools, she got a base pay, and then there were steps. 24-step pay scale that allowed her for an increase in pay up to a certain point. Is that still the case here, or does that go away?
No, that was a difference between the Democratic plan that would have raised the minimum teacher salary to $50,000 and the plan that we ultimately saw in the LEARNS Act. They're doing away with the pay schedule as part of the LEARNS Act. And the argument for that is to give districts more flexibility, but that's really going to put a lot of teachers in a bad situation where maybe they have been teaching for a number of years. They're only making about $52,000, and then a new teacher is going to come along and start at $50,000. Now, I will say there's really no perfect plan to meaningfully raise raises or salaries for all teachers and not have some issues like that arise. But we really feel like keeping the pay schedule in place would have been the better way to go.
So what happens is it's left up to each district to come up with that scale, and then how does that money? Where do they get the money to do this?
Well, they'll continue to get the money just as they do every biennium from the state legislature. There'll be an appropriation that goes out. Money will go to the schools. They will figure out how to spend it. I'm sure you're going to see, at least initially, perhaps some confusion or just different approaches across school districts as they work to adjust to this new system.
All right, Senator, that's all I need to know. Thank you so much. Give me your reaction to what happened just a little bit ago in the Senate.
I'm just grateful that we got the bill passed. We know we still have a lot of work ahead, and to be quite honest, this has been years and years in the making. My name might be on the bill, but there are a number of people that have been championing this for many years. And so was so excited to see it, but I know there were a lot of people both on the Senate floor and in the gallery and watching live that were ecstatic to see some of the hard work that they've been part of come to fruition finally.
I know no bill can be perfect, so talk about the good things and maybe what some of the not so good things are about this one.
Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest, like when I sit down and talk to teachers over the phone or administration, people that are just trying to understand what's in the bill and what's going on. When I have an opportunity to sit and talk with them, they understand and see that it actually is good. We're actually investing in public schools. We're investing in our teachers. We're investing in our kids. And so I think there's it's gotten out of control, all of the political rhetoric around this bill that is just not accurate. And we can disagree on policy, but let's state the facts. And so just trying to make sure we've got the good information out there on the bill. I mean, the bill is full of great things: recruiting future workforce, supporting teachers we have now, wrapping services around them to help support the kids that are in the classroom with them. So we know that they work hard every day, and we want to do our job at the state level to support those teachers that are working for our kids.
A lot of the feedback that we're getting from emails and just people on that message us about asking questions as well. One, the teacher pay raise. They're ecstatic that it's going to be up to 50,000. What happens to those who have been there for a while who make 52,000 or 53,000? Is one of their questions. And two, there used to be a step pay scale, that you would get throughout a number of years. What happens with that, and how do districts ensure that those teachers are still going to get a pay raise after this 50,000?
Yeah, so because that will be up to districts to do the salary schedules. So there has been a lot of confusion about that. This bill does not max teachers out at 50,000 or 52,000. We are providing a minimum of a $2,000 raise for every teacher, bringing that minimum up to 50,000. So the state is paying for that. And it's important to understand that that's going to be a separate fund. And then there's adequacy money. And every 2 years, we make adequacy recommendations and we increase the amount of funds we put into that to distribute to schools for things like personnel, for teacher salaries. So that is not going to stop. There's going to be increased funding through adequacy. So school districts are still going to get new money beyond the teacher raises that they can put towards steps in a salary schedule. So they are going to have the money to do that. It's going to be up to them to design their salary schedules. But that's exactly how it's going to work. And I encourage those teachers to go talk to their school board and superintendents.
The voucher system. There's been a lot of talk with or feedback from us. You're taking state dollars and putting it into a private or parochial school. How does that going to affect, say, for our example, Russellville schools? Does that take money away from Russellville public schools and put it into something for a private school? And how is that going to all work?
Yeah, I mean, we already have a system right now with the Succeed Scholarship that allows kids with, disabilities and different things to apply for that, to find maybe a private school that meets their educational needs. So this is something the state's already doing. We're just building on that and expanding it and starting with people who are most in need, right? You're talking about homeless students, foster care, kids in foster care, kids of military officers, and the list goes on. And so this isn't to take money away from private or public schools, rather, but it's about acknowledging that within education, one size does not fit all. And by and large, even when this is fully implemented in 3 years from now, families and kids, they are going to choose public schools because we've got a lot of great public schools across our state. And so we know that. But you know what? We heard testimony yesterday from parents in tears that were able to take part in the Succeed Scholarship Program, and it has changed the life of their kid. And we want to see more families have opportunity to have access to that. So it's about just acknowledging, like, we all have the same goal, and that's to educate our kids and have them be successful. We may differ on what we think that looks like, but this is an option for families that desperately need one.
A couple of emails we got yesterday. How slippery a slope are we getting with church and state if you're going to fund a private school with state or private Christian school with state funds?
Yeah, there's a lot of there's case law on this. Like, everything is constitutional. There's been cases across the country. Like, there was a recent ruling about this very thing. It's completely constitutional, and I have no problem with it.
What does this do for the state, do you think?
Well, I think that this is going to reap huge benefits for the state. I mean, if you say right now that around 67% of our kids can't read at grade level, and we can change that, we will literally change the future of our state. You talk about bringing in higher paying jobs. I mean, you will change generations. And to be quite honest, like, I know we've said things like, we're not going to protect the status quo any longer. But the truth is, for decades, we have shown that our kids cannot read, and we need to do a better job supporting them and getting the right tools in the hands of teachers. So this will fundamentally change the future of our state.
Does this keep teachers in Arkansas?
I think, yeah. And I think it recruits teachers here. I mean, you're talking about fourth in the country in starting teacher pay. And here's the thing, like, we heard from teachers last summer when we had a whole debate on teacher salaries that are worried about the future of the profession. And this is a response to that. Like, so many parts of this bill are about recruiting new teachers and retaining the talent that we have. And you can just go through that list of all the things we're doing for recruitment. And it's a huge deal. It's a huge investment in teachers because we heard them. We acknowledge that it's extremely valuable to our society here in Arkansas, that our kids are educated with quality people, and we want them in the teaching profession.